Welcome to the Reddit library. Today, we'll be looking at r/AskReddit, where the user KarmaLover666 asks the question, what's your greatest "well I'm ducked" moment? Buddy needs a ride at 10 p.m. Borrow dad's car. Pick him up and get on the way. Get pulled over for the speeding, and as soon as you see the red and blue lights, he says one thing you don't want to hear. Don't pull over. My backpack is full of drugs you were taking me to sell. Also, it's your backpack now. On stage and forget the next 8 lines. Edit. Had nightmares for the rest of the week. You don't forget the next 8 lines. You forget everything up until X happens, and everything falls back into line again. And I don't mean it in the cute way. I mean you forget everything, including why you started doing acting in the first place. As you frantically try to somehow use glazed over terror eye contact to cue everyone else on stage that you are ducked. Was in a play when that happened. Guy was playing a drunk and had a long hilarious monologue, but he stopped halfway through and gave me the deer in the headlights look. Nobody could jump in because that monologue led to the events that happened afterwards, so we would have to skip quite a bit. So he stood up, burped, walked over to the bar and ordered a drink. The bartender didn't have any prop drinks, but he went along with it and gave him a cup. This guy sat down, drank it, and finished his monologue. Bought himself a solid 2 minutes to straighten his head out. Now that's thinking on your feet. Was on holiday in Fiji and was in a pretty isolated area of rainforest on a tour walk. I had climbed about 10 or 15 meters up a waterfall. I'm an idiot. I started climbing down and went to stand on a landing, and my feet started slipping like I was standing on ice, and I was heading for the cliff edge with nothing to stop me. I remember everything was in slow motion, and when I looked down and saw nothing but jagged rocks and the faces of the people on the tour looking up like I was about to die, I thought to myself, this is it. Anyway, I somehow managed to keep myself on the landing, but ate crud pretty badly, got a few cuts and bruises, and avoided a Darwin Award. Too long didn't read. Didn't go chasing waterfalls, stick to the rivers and lakes, and that you're used to. I was in a car mishap when I was younger, where my mom lost control of a car on a wet road and we ended up sideways facing oncoming traffic. Luckily, we had slid far enough across the road for the cars to swerve and miss us, but for a few seconds I thought I was super dead. Super dead, when plain dead just isn't enough. Enlisted in the Marines because I wanted the challenge, not because I actually wanted to fight or anything. Naive, I know. While I was in dental, waiting to get my wisdom teeth pulled, a handful of bad people crashed planes into the World Trade Center. Join the Navy or the Air Force for that crud. You don't go into the Marines hoping to not get into combat. I was in E3R's same position on 9/11, but in the Navy. Still had the same feeling. P.S. All bets were off on who went into a combat zone. Plenty of sailors, technical types, or otherwise were sent to combat zones as a part of the individual augmentee program. Navy. So you're an electronics tech who worked on ordnance and avionics? Navy. How do you feel about robots? You will now be assigned to an EOD unit to repair bomb robots. Individual augmentee program sounds like some awesome Deus Ex implants program. As a little kid, I was traveling with my family on a plane to Dubai. Once it landed, I went down on one aisle, family went down the other. I didn't know and thought my family were behind me. Kept walking forward, and eventually when I looked back, they weren't there. Well, crud. Walked back and forth for what felt like an eternity in the airport trying to find them since I was lost in a foreign airport. Without my passport or identification, it was with my parents. Freaking out because there was a police person there and people kept looking at me funny because I was an unintended Asian kid freaking out. Eventually, I was reunited with my family, but man, it was terrifying as a kid. Home Alone 6, Dubai. Starring Kevin Zubay. This was when I was in 7th grade. I went to a really small Catholic school and my parents a lot of times helped out around the school on weekends. So I was often there in an almost empty school with nothing to do really. I, for some reason, had a very different locker than most of the other kids in the school. Mine was a really short locker, but very wide. I had always wondered if I could fit inside of it. I figured this was a good time to do it with nobody around to see me finally solve this stupid mystery. So I get inside and I'm kind of scrunched in there. Well, the goddamn door shuts on me. I'm trying to use my fingers to open the latch from the inside, but I can't do it. So I've locked myself inside my own damn locker until probably 20 minutes later, my dad and another adult family friend came along and I start pounding on the door. They laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. You know what? I'll just let you guys know when they're done laughing. But it's been 14 years, so I'm not sure that's gonna be anytime soon. I can't wait for I got caught in my locker and no one helped me, part 17 in r/no sleep. At least they slipped him a smartphone so he can read it from inside the locker. Just a few days ago, my first time going rafting, and my group and I were about to get in the raft, and all the instructors kept saying, "Wow, this is the roughest water I've seen in 7 years. No biggie, let's go rafting." Ended up being caught between two currents and flipping over. I was stuck under the raft for about 2 minutes until I was finally yanked out and dragged through the river until I hit a rock and climbed on top. The entire time my only thought was, well, this is how I die. Turns out a woman in my group did die. She hit her head underwater, passed out, and drowned. I used to be a kayak guide. When you can say you've never seen conditions like this, and it's the truth, it's time to pull the tourists out of the water. After the third capsize in the first 10 minutes of a 2-hour trip, I canceled the trip and gave everybody their money back. If I had been smarter, I would have canceled it the second I saw the water. Believe it or not, some customers nagged at me. To be fair, optimally, I would have canceled it when I checked the water flow in the morning. But it's such a lazy stretch of river I just hadn't believed it would actually get dangerous. I did pack in 2 additional guides on the tour as insurance. 4 instead of the normal 2 I would have had for a group of that size. Later that day, I called up all the guides, and those that could make it got to run down what were effectively class 3+ rapids nobody had experience in. But hey, never had anyone die on me yet. Ha, your last sentence reminded me of what a guy told me when I got sucked out of the boat. We were surfing right next to a waterfall. I was in the front right of the raft. The bow dipped and water just started piling on top of me. I got sucked out. The current pushed me along underwater for a while. I thought it was just because I was nervous, and a second underwater seemed like 30. Finally, I popped back up like way later than I should have. The guide was like, "Oh man, I thought you broke my streak." I guess I was under for a while, and all the guides had crud their pants. Recently, I was moving home and job around the same time. I was staying with my parents as it made getting to my new job 100 times easier. On the day I was moving, I opened a letter that had been in the flat informing me I owed a city council £5,000. Turns out, a guy I lived with for a few years hadn't been paying the bill. We had a deal that I paid for the internet and television, and he covered that. He hadn't paid a single penny in the years we had lived together and lied to me God knows how many times. Now, not paying council tax is actually a crime, and my new job is basically moving large amounts of money for people. I have never been more stressed and furious in my life. For those who care, it all got sorted because my parents are amazing. I got my butthole of an ex-friend to sign a contract saying he owes them the money, and they paid it off, and the council made sure that there will be no negative consequences for me. But I nearly got set back the last 5 years and put into debt that would have crippled me. He still goes around telling people that I'm overreacting by being mad. A friend called me saying he had been kicked out and need help picking his stuff up. I was doing well in chemistry, the only class I had that morning, so I figured I could skip one and go help. Show 2 days later for the next class, and they began handing out graded midterms. That's why you should keep a calendar. Did the teacher let you take it? Did you fail? He did not let me retake it, but I had good grades up to that point and made a good grade on the second midterm and the final. I also did an extra credit assignment near the end, which boosted my grade. Overall, I probably lost half a letter grade, but my final grade was an 82, so it would have been a B either way. Still one of the worst feelings I have ever had, though. That's good that it turned out fine in the end. I smoke weed pretty rarely, but I decided to have a bowl last Friday night. Random urinalysis at work Monday morning. I drank a gallon of water and pissed pretty much straight water. Doubt it worked though. I've been sitting here all week waiting for a call from HR. I don't know what I'm going to do if I lose my job. Just keep detoxing. If you fail, you can claim it's a false positive and retake it that next week, but you should just keep detoxing. Exercise, exercise, exercise. Woke up at 9:15. Final exam started at 8:45. I've been out of college for more than a decade, and I still have this nightmare. Do you ever get the dream where you have some vital essay that is due in the morning and actually get up in a panic and start writing about the fall of Russian monarchy for about 15 minutes at stupid o'clock in the morning? Just curious. I sometimes have dreams that someone walked in my messy room and I actually get up and start tidying up. I also have a reoccurring nightmare. It's the end of the school year. I have final exams due, and I've just realized I've been enrolled into a class to which I never showed up during the year. It's usually the last lecture. The teacher has obviously never seen me, and I'm freaking out. LOL. My attendance issues continue to haunt me a decade later. I was doing grenade training exercise in Afghanistan. My platoon had the day off, so our commander scheduled a big range for us to go and practice. We were using many weapons that day. A lot of bigger stuff to include frag grenades, AT-4s, 50 cals, and barrettes. It was an exciting day because as a standard infantryman, you don't use that stuff hardly ever. The range was just starting, and our other squad got to start with the AT-4s, a rocket launcher for those who don't know. I was very jealous because my squad got stuck with grenades first, which is the most boring range of all those things listed before. We start a line to start lobbing them over the HESCO barriers downrange and get to it. A guy in my squad, let's call him Smith, comes up to the plate and readies his grenade. As he threw, the spoon on the grenade caught on his sleeve and hit the top of the barrier and fell straight down. Everyone yells and takes off running back to the concrete safety trench about 30 feet behind us. Everyone except me. I was next in line, so closest to the grenade minus the guy throwing. And as I pivoted to run, I slipped and ate crud no more than 10 to 15 feet away from the grenade. At that moment, I decided to not get back up and thought, I'm screwed. When grenades explode, there is a cone of the explosion where a sliver above the ground does not get hit by shrapnel. And I just so happened to be in that protective cone. Those 3 seconds felt like a lifetime. The grenade went off and absolutely rocked the crud out of me. But somehow I was unscathed. My squad leader came to check on me and rolled me over yelling my name. As I rolled over, I just looked at him and said, I honestly was shaken up for only like a minute. I wanted to resume the range so I could shoot the big stuff. But since we had an accident, our range was shut down and we never got to go back for the rest of deployment. What's your greatest, well I'm ducked moment? Let us know in the comments below and you might get a chance to be featured in an upcoming video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos from the library, and thank you so much for watching.